This is Robert Capuccio. Welcome to the Self-Help Antidote, a weekly dose of reason, perspective, and insight, where we challenge conventional thinking and explore authentic strategies and insights around personal transformation. Our commitment to you is to bring you some of the world's leading experts in the domains of fitness, wellness, coaching, and behavior change, separating fact from fallacy.
G'day everyone, g'day Bobby Capuccio. Oh my God, it's so good to see your face again.
I almost cut you off as soon as you said, "Good day, everyone." I almost jumped in there. That's how excited I am. Oof,
so exciting. It's like old
I've used up
times.
all my discipline for the podcast now, so who knows what I'm going to say. I'm done.
All I know is if we don't talk about cats today, you're probably never going to come back ever again and do a podcast with me. So
can we talk about cats today?
Well, definitely. You've got a new cat.
I got a cat.
Tell me
Right?
about this cat.
This cat's like, if he was not so affectionate and interactive, he'd be terrifying. This would be the scariest cat I have ever encountered. So my wife was sending me all these cat videos, not as a message. It wasn't a hint. It was just sharing cute shit that cats do. Me and my wife have had a really tough year, to be fair. I was like, and we lost our pet, not this year, but a couple of years ago, which seems like not a long time. And we were like, we're not ready for another dog. We can't replace our dog. Like, that was our dog, even though we love dogs. And we were like, maybe cats are a little bit easier, which they're not at all, not even close. And maybe we should get a cat. So we went in to get this cat. We looked at the shelter, and there was this one cat we wanted because nobody wanted him because he had a lot of dental problems and he had to have all his teeth removed. But he was cool. And we're like, you know what? This cat, we're going to get him. But the day we went back, the vet didn't remove all of the cat's teeth like they were supposed to. They're like, oh, these are healthy teeth. But they were like, no, he's got a gum disease. They're going to have to be removed again. It's like, I'm sorry, you could foster this cat, but you can't adopt the cat because he still has more medical work. So we're like, all right, maybe we'll take a look at some kittens, but the kittens were nursing. So like, why don't you stay in this room? Here's this little, and there's this tiny, skinny, underfed cat, and his name was Houdini, right? I said, well, why'd you name him Houdini? I said, well, because when we first brought him here, he got into a fight out in the street, and I think he was on the losing end of that. So he had this massive gash from his face all the way down to his neck, and they had to drain it and give him intensive medical attention. And when they first brought him from the vet to the shelter, they had him locked in his carrier cage and locked inside of the truck. And they ran inside to get his cage all cleaned out. And then when they came out, right, he had not only gotten out of his cage, but somehow figured out a way to get out of the truck. And he was sitting right on the bonnet, like, oh, hello. I'm like, how did you do that? So I'm like, all right, you guys are embellishing. This cat's freakishly smart. And I know all cat owners are like, oh, my cat's so smart. And it's like, no, it's not a compliment. I'm saying that with worry. So a lot of times he keeps us up at night. He will jump in the bed. He'll keep us up. We can't sleep. So we've prepared his space. He has a lot of little space. Oh, here he is. He wants to jump up on me. So he has a lot of little spaces that he sleeps in. So we shut the door and we let him sleep. Well, he's figured out how to open up doors. He knows how to operate doorknobs.
I've had to replace the door here at this house. Mine cost me $500. Yeah, like $400 or something. Yeah, I had to replace the actual door because my mechanisms of getting it closed, I'd replace the handles to get rid of the lever handle, and then the mechanism of keeping the door closed wasn't healthy for the door latch, and I ended up being locked in the studio one day, locked in. And when I tried to undo the door handles to get out, that didn't work either. I had to get someone to come break into my house and kick the door in and then replace the door. So that's what Houdini might be bringing to you for 2024. Maybe keep a locksmith and a spare door on hand.
Thanks. Yeah, that's great. So what we started doing when he learned how to use the doorknobs was, we're just going to lock the door from the inside. And we made sure it's locked, it's shut. Somehow he got past the lock door. I don't know if he uses his claw as a lock pick, but this cat is freakishly smart. And my wife was saying, what are you doing? He's just jumping all over the place. So she was saying that when we walk into the house, he mimics hello. He says hello to us. She's like, did you hear him say? And I'm like, he's not saying hello. Those are 2 short consecutive meows that you're recognizing as a pattern that's not there. We walked into the house the other day and he was like, hello. And it's like, what? So I know he doesn't know what he's saying, but every time we come into the house, we're like, hello. So he meows that back to us in that tone. I'm like, I've had cats before. This cat is freakishly smart. I got to stay in his good graces and give him a lot of treats because he literally could figure out how to kill us if he wanted to.
I can't wait to see the next couple of years unfold for you. Now I'm at that point now where I've got 2 years worth of memories popping up on my Facebook right now when I look in my memories, there's 2 years ago, all of these cute little bear in a little collar after getting desexed and all of this cuteness. I had no idea what I had just unleashed on the next potential 2 decades of my life. I'll be dealing with this until I'm 60, Bobby. I'll be dealing with this until I'm 60.
No, you will not. Okay, I've had cats. You'll be dealing with this for a year or 2, and then she's going to get to a certain age, and she's like, oh, I can't be asked. She will calm down at some point. Like right now, he's looking around the office and going, okay, what can I smash? What can I wreck? What can I play with? Why is he not paying attention to me? You know what? I think I'm just going to go sit on his head right now.
Yeah.
But in 2 years, he's just going to be like, all right, whatever. I'm chill. Or maybe not. But my wife has fallen completely in love with him because he's a perfect combination in her mind of super affectionate, but really cheeky. Like he's strong-willed. Like he'll come up to you every 5 minutes for a pet. But if you go up to him and he doesn't want to be pet, he'll smack you. Like, get out of here.
They're the gurus in boundary setting,
Oh,
the gurus.
They're teachers.
The first thing I thought was, hang on, should we be allowing this relationship dynamic to exist in my life? Because really they're tiny little narcissists. It's such a toxic relationship. And then eventually it kind of reframed itself and I was like, actually, I could just learn from this furry little child of mine a thing or two about setting boundaries.
Bukowski said that, he drank a lot, so you just got to take it all with a grain of salt. But he said, there are teachers. They'll sleep 20 hours a day and they won't feel guilty or they won't feel like, oh my God, is somebody judging me? Not saying we should be sleeping 20 hours a day, but they pretty much are in the flow with what it is that they want. I don't reckon they're narcissists. They're just fiercely independent. So she's trained him to do tricks. She won't give him a treat unless he sits. Sit.
Oh.
So, but now he's so at first he was like, I'm not doing this. But now he's learned, okay, I want a treat. So he'll walk up to the cupboard and he'll sit down and he'll just look at you like, I'm sitting. So when I sit like this, that means I get treats, right? It's like, okay, yeah, okay, that was kind of the deal. And now I'm thinking, oh, fucking hell, he's trained us. We're not training him for anything.
And by the time you make that realization, it's too late. It's too late. You can't flip that dynamic.
He already owns us. He was nibbling on our fingers. And I looked on the internet because, okay, if you looked at my Google searches over the past couple of weeks, you would think I have lost my mind. You would call a clinician to deal with me because it's all about everything you've ever wanted to know about cats, what cats can eat, behaviors of cats, toys for cats, what type of treats are best for cats. Is catnip really good for cats every single day? Apparently it's all right, but it has two different mechanisms. Sniff it, they're all extremely euphoric and playful. Eat it, it's a little bit sedative and it calms them. Anyway, so anything you ever wanted to know about cats, I could probably tell you because I think I'm descending into madness. But one of the things that he does is he nibbles on our fingers. And I was like, why does he do that? It's well, that's ownership. He's basically saying, you're mine, I own you. So yeah, we got a cat, and now the cat completely has us.
You're the cat whisperer, bro. I follow this bloke on, I think it's on Instagram probably, or YouTube or somewhere. And he's called the Cat Daddy. He's just a bloke that, you know, he's kind of cool. You learn a bit of stuff.
That sounds a little bit like a porn site. I'm sorry.
Actually, now you think of it, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about that name.
Anyway, we were having a bit of a banter before we got on and talked all things cats.
As always.
And I reckon it's a good topic to talk about, this idea of a few things, one of them being hustle culture. You know, how people, because everyone's selling everything that they do, even if they're not selling it these days. Like everything we do or choose, or every way we decide to be, so many people are selling it and validating their choices by kind of recruiting for it. And one of those things is that hustle culture, that work hard, do hard, be hard. It's funny, somebody invited me to an event this week.
See, that also sounds like a porn site. I'm sorry.
I'm not going to ask what else you've been Googling, but there seems to be a topic top of mind for you right now. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Cats. My web browser is a complicated topic filled with intrigue and suspicion. No, but I'm just saying, like, you just said, like work hard, be hard. I'm sorry. I didn't say that. You said that.
Anyway, someone sent me this event that's coming to Melbourne. They were like, you got to come to this with me. And I was like, yep, cool. I'm in. But then I went and I had a look at this person I wasn't familiar with. And I won't talk about who it is. It doesn't even matter, but it's someone I wasn't familiar with. But their messaging was just that hard work, hustle. You know, they're a big masculine bloke, and I'm not against that. You know, like I don't kind of follow any particular personality style as such. But I'm not even saying I'm against what they represent, but I was just like, that's not what I want or need right now. I don't want someone barking, work hard, be hard, money, money, money. It was very money focused, and and I was like so put off by it. But it's interesting how we get influenced by that stuff. What do you think?
Well, I think that most people, if they're reasonable, would acknowledge that anything that you are looking to achieve, and for me, I'm not over-indexed on outcomes. To me, it's process, right? But it requires a lot of consistent action. It requires effort, and it requires consistency. But here's where I think we're being a bit bamboozled. Things that you apply effort to, that are deeply meaningful, even when they are causing suffering, are deeply rewarding. And I think people who are like, grind, push harder, try harder, are individuals who do not have a strategy. They do not know, because they haven't done the freaking work. They haven't gone to the courses. They haven't learned the skills. They haven't read the books. They haven't had the tens of thousands of hours of application around coaching and what it really takes to have somebody identify what they want or autonomously change you can't change someone's behaviors. It doesn't matter how loud you're screaming. It doesn't matter how intense you are. It doesn't matter how much anecdotal evidence you have. The only person who can change is someone. I am only capable of changing myself. You are only capable of changing yourself. And when someone lacks a strategy, I think they double down on emotional philosophy. Mm-hmm. So, and I think the litmus test is, where else is this true? So if you were a musician and you hired a coach, how often would that coach tell you, try harder, play harder, work harder? They would give you something to focus on. And the first thing they would say is relax. Mm. If you hired a tennis coach, they would give you a focal point and tell you, relax. Mm. When you have a driving instructor, they're giving you a sequence of instructions that are very specific, logical, and within an order of application that works because it's tested. Hence, a lot of people drive and they will tell you to focus on something. And one of the first things they say is relax. So if it was about put in as much intensity and effort as you can, well, that would be a driving course. Just drive harder, like hit the accelerator as hard as you can. It doesn't work. You don't get into a state of high performance like that. It kills creativity. It kills creativity. It kills your ability to notice when you're on point and when you're making errors, and go back, course correct, and myelinate and make those connections in the brain. It is high stress that's unrelenting and void of meaningful feedback that's measured is not conducive to continuous learning. And it's not, it's like, look, people always say, well, facts don't care about your feelings. Your feelings don't care about facts. It works both ways. It doesn't really matter how you feel about it. Like there is so much evidence to point out how we learn. We need stress. We need a bit of frustration. We need a bit of curiosity. What we don't need is to be so absolutely stressed out of our mind without a specific focal point, without a specific process, and just try harder without meaningful feedback. And I think when you're doing something that's meaningful, you're doing something that's enjoyable, and things are not enjoyable all the time, granted. But when it has meaning and you're able to step back and relax and go, okay, what exactly am I trying to achieve? What is the best use of my focus right now? Those are the things that are conducive to progress.
Do you have an example you can think of in your life where when you look back now, you see the process, I guess, you see the process that led you to a place you wanted to arrive at. However, if you had sat at the start and saw the process as the thing to get you. So you looked at the outcome and said, I want to get there. I'll have to do this to do that. That you would have probably felt different at the start and not done it. Does that make sense how I asked that?
I don't think anyone's ever asked that question quite in that way. And that is such a brilliant question. And I would like to say yes. And it feeds into what I'm talking about. I think every time I have been like, I am going to give this as much effort as I possibly can, I was the least aware of myself. I had the poorest emotional regulation, and I made the most amount of errors. But the problem with errors was I wasn't good at detecting those errors. So I couldn't identify, okay, this is not working. Let me stop and pause and engage in a little bit of analysis here and recalibrate and move forward. But every time, like when I first started out in my career, I had a ton of effort because I was so inspired, but I wasn't trying. It's not like, oh, I'm going to try to make this happen. I was just doing because I loved doing it. And then I'm sure there was a lot of steps that I took. Now when I tell the story, of course, in retrospect, I did a lot of things in a certain sequence, and that could be duplicated. So the answer to that question is yes. But for me personally, when I look back in my life, when I have been most quote unquote successful, it's when I was trying to facilitate an outcome the least. I was just so invested in the process because of what it meant to me. And even sitting down to do anything with the end in mind, the harder I worked and the more attached I was to it, the worse I performed. I think that goes into the Asian philosophy of Wu Wei, or the law of reverse effort. It's that when you let go of detachments, you let go of the outcome, and you relax into the process, you are able to facilitate results far more readily. And that's something that is disappearing from our society. And I think it's critical for mastery. You have to be absorbed in something that captivates you fully, that requires all of your attention and allows you to step back and be disengaged fully at times. Like we've all had that experience where it's like, I'm just trying so hard to facilitate an outcome or a result. And it's like, God, it's just escaping me. It's like squeezing a water from stone. But then we jump into the shower, and in the shower, we have this brilliant idea. Why? Because we relax for 5 minutes.
See, in the middle of this conversation, I feel like the marriage of all of the things that need to come together is almost, there's plenty of people out there driving process, teaching, influencing, guiding, being the help that we need. But for each person, where we place our consciousness in the middle of it all, it changes. Like the reason I was thinking about it is because I reflected this week on myself, and from two observations. And one is, I look at so this year I went, all right, I've wasted a lot of time not focusing on the one thing I said I wanted to focus on, and that was speaking and running events that I love to do. It was like, I've not made space for that. I really haven't. I'm so busy in all my other areas that I love. However, those areas, the reason I started the podcast in lockdown was because of my value for communication and speaking, and it was a way to develop that skill. So there's the link there, there's an intention there, but then I just fell in love with the process so much I got busy with it. And then this year I've had a few speaking gigs, and last week my first gig emceeing. And so I've been reflecting and going, that took 4 years of work that had some intention, but then I let go of the intention and the goal, and I didn't take action. And I felt like when I would glance at that fact, I would get frustrated with me and go, you're really not, you're really lagging. You're really not focusing where you should. You really don't have a plan or a goal. But I was so busy in the process. But then now I'm in a space where all of that has come together. I'm comfortable. I'm a better communicator. And now I'm stepping into that, to those roles and those opportunities, and they're landing really well because I'm ready. So I've done the work. But yeah, for me, that was the process. But for some people, but even in the middle of it, looking at it at different times, it's like, I am doing this right. I'm not doing this right. Like, is it right? Is it not right? And I feel like when we're trying to more consciously make a start on something or a decision, or even be in the middle of it, it's really hard to get all the right balance of all of that. Because I think in the middle of this whole, the 4 years that I've been, and 800 bloody shows that I've produced, or episodes, not shows, in the middle of all of that, I don't know, I wasn't always popping up and going, how are we going towards that other overarching thing where you really want to be? It's just in the process. I was just loving, the reward was the learning and the connection, and there was a lot of interpersonal learning, not even skill set. For me, there was this huge amount of emotional and personal growth and development, and the allowance of people to influence me, and the observation of relationships and values and me, and not in a super deliberate, aware way, but in a observing it all having taken place and recognizing it. I'm different now. I noticed this year that I'm really intentional about people and relationships. That's what guides my choices now. People and relationships. Who do I really connect with their intention and their energy and their opportunity or the strategy or the business thing. That doesn't attract me. What attracts me is this person's got some soul, and I like where they are and what they're doing, and I just get a sense of that, and that's become a guiding light for me, where it wasn't so much before. There was a lot more, what do I want to do? What does, more surface level stuff perhaps.
Let's focus on doing a really great episode by having a meaningful conversation and seeing what I can learn from this person. I mean, think about that. You do that 800 times. You are going to evolve into someone who is attractive, who people want to work with. I mean, look at it like dating. Oh, I want to impress this person. Oh my God, I'm going to get this person. And I'm not going to stop until they say yes. I'm just going to keep asking them out. I'm going to impress them. I'm just going to go after. I'm going to do the hustle and the grind. You're going to do some serious damage and get a restraining order with any luck. Versus, I'm going to listen to this person and be completely absorbed, not because there's an outcome that I'm looking for, because I enjoy this person. They're a person of interest. Like quality time spent with them is a reward in and of itself. You're going to become so much more attractive. And that's my issue with hustle culture. If something is true in one context, even if it's not universally true, you got to ask, where else does this work? And when you examine it, like becoming a neurosurgeon, becoming a musician, becoming a skilled athlete, of course, there's so many hours of work that go into it, but it's not about push, harder, grind, effort. There is a process, there is a mentality there. And a lot of times there is a need to relax and let go. And that is what most coaches will tell you. So why does that work in all of these domains where people can point to a specific strategy and trajectory for skill development? But for gurus who are scream and grind, they don't seem to have anything beyond do the work. There's nothing else there. Like you can give, like, try harder, make a better decision. This is empty shit. You can give these cue cards to a 7-year-old. And it's like, okay, you are now a coach. Every time someone says something, read one of these cards and just repeat what's on the card. And that's about the level of sophistication. But when we speak to people who are struggling, and when we struggle, we're not open, we're not vulnerable, we're not analyzing things. We resort back to these emotive sound bites because we're afraid or we're angry. It resonates with us. So I honestly think it's manipulation. And not everybody who's doing this is intentionally trying to manipulate people. I think they fell into it and now they're passing it along, but other people are absolutely trying to manipulate. It's like there has got to be a process, and there's got to, if you're going to lead someone to create the skills and the behaviors that, if they choose, result in change, you've got to have more than that. There's enough empirical evidence.
Yeah, I think rather than thinking that it comes from any sinister place, I think that it's just gaps in people's understanding. And it reminds me of one thing that on the weekend when I was interviewing Ben Felton and Kevin McGee at the event, one thing that I pointed out, because it stood out to me so much, there's these two guys. So for anyone that's not familiar, Ben Felton in 2018, completely blind, broke the world Guinness record for the fastest blind man on a motorcycle going at 270 k's an hour. And Kevin McGee, who's a former Australian superbike legend from Horsham in Victoria here, he was the navigator. Before they made this attempt, they didn't know each other. So we talked a lot about the process. We talked about their backstories first. We talked a lot about the process. But one thing I said to them, what stood out to me is there's the science. Here's this guy who wants to break a record and he needs someone to be on his team. There's the science, there's the understanding of the mechanics of how to ride a bike, of how to translate and communicate, of how to make sure that the bike stays in a straight line. There's your reaction time skills, all of this. There's decision making, all of that, kind of put that under the banner of science. We need, in order to do something at the top of anyone in the world, to be the number one in the world, all of the science needs to be on point. But that's not that's not what gets number one. What gets number one is the fact that, and what they talked about that stood out to me was Kevin's this really relaxed bloke from country Victoria. You know, he's real chill. At so many times throughout the conversation, I was like, guys, so I feel like I'm sitting here talking to two 14-year-old boys, like, you know, you're doing the most dangerous thing ever. It's like your life, one of your lives is in the other bloke's hands, and you're funny and you're joking and you're naughty and you're all of the things, you know. But Kevin is so incredibly chill. So we played this voice recording of him doing the navigating, and he's just like left, right, like just chill. Like even the way he said that, I was like so laid back. And part of you hears that, or part of me hears that and goes, wouldn't you want someone that's really on point and really like and amped? But the reality is his demeanor and energy relaxes Ben and puts Ben into a really high performance state. It relaxes him. It has an effect. It has trust. They trust each other and they have this unbreakable bond. And that's what gets you number one in the world at the task. It's what puts your body and mind into the state where everything else can just work, because you have safety and trust and joy and all the things that matter. And I pointed that out to the crowd because we were raising money for disability services. So I would assume there's a lot of people that have a connection with disability and disability services in the crowd. And I want people that are there, maybe have overcome or overcoming their own disability. If an idea sparks in their mind in that moment, I want them to have that critical thinking, that method of thought that goes, actually, who do I need and want on my team if I decide to do something great now, and then have the best chance to get it.
So many things you said there. I mean, I think one of the most important things to ask yourself in any area of performance is, what is the best use of my focus right now? What am I focusing on? And if there's no trust and there's no safety and there's an extreme level of anxiety, you can't do that. And you cannot perform. It's like when you can't sleep at night. Okay, I need to fall asleep. I have to get to sleep. Good luck with that. You'll never fall asleep. Or you step on stage, it's like, okay, work hard. Like try really hard. Or I'm going to show passion and energy on the stage. You're going to be scary and awkward. Or whatever you do, don't forget this information that pertains to this slide. Don't stammer. Speak clearly. That shit doesn't work. I mean, I'm sure there's a domain where that stuff works, but most things that require the development and execution of skill, I can't think of many.
Really highlights how many areas where self-awareness and understanding and reflection and objective and subjective reality is at play, like hustle culture, and when is quitting a sensible decision and when is quitting giving up, and is it actually your relationship with your story around the quitting in the moment that is more detrimental than the quitting itself? Like people always say, don't quit, never give up, don't quit. Well, when is quitting actually not quitting and doing something sensible and going, I've had some awesome learnings out of this. I'm going to actually, there's a new spark and I'm going to head in this direction. I've learned something here. It's not quitting. You know, what's sensible about not quitting if you're just smashing your head against a wall and it's creating you stress and anxiety and a negative narrative about I'm not quitting, but I'm failing like fuck and not enjoying myself. Or who wants to get to the end of life and go, well, I didn't quit, but I hated every second of it. What a shit life. Like,
yeah, I hate what I'm doing. I've demonstrated I don't have a natural inclination for it, and it holds no meaning for me. But I'm going to double down because I believe, don't quit. I think for me, other times in my life when I believe I've done better, or at least really enjoyed the process, which is a win, is when I've held strong beliefs loosely. When you hang on to something and it's not a value, it's not a principle, but it's like, I believe this and it's non-negotiable, you've cut yourself off from ever learning. There's no room for learning from other people's experiences and insights, which means you're in a freaking echo chamber. So when I was in Australia with you, I was reading a book by Mo Gawat called Scary Smart, and it was on the evolution of artificial intelligence. And one of the interesting things that he was saying is AI is going to learn at a terrifying rate, because the second any AI in the world learns something, they all learn it instantly.
Yeah.
Now, we can't learn at the rate of an AI, but when you come together in groups, let's say I like group coaching, and so I just did my first orientation. I'm working with a group of people that are highly skilled coaches at an elite level. And even though they're all in the same domain, there's an affinity that we coach. They have different teams. Some of them are from different sports. There's a different dynamic. So somebody's going to say something that is similar, yet at the same time different from everyone else's experience. And it's something that has worked, or there's been a challenge and they have found a way to reconcile that challenge. And the second they volunteer that, if there's room for vulnerability, for trust, there's safety, everybody learns it. But here's the difference between humans and AI. We might learn a lot slower, but because of our distinctions and our beliefs, and because of all of the nuances that went into developing us to who we are, we might learn something, but that gives us an insight, and we might volunteer that insight to the group. So not only do we all learn, we all have an insight and learn again. And then somebody else has an insight and we learn again. So because we learned from something that we did not experience, it's vicarious learning. To go back to social cognitive theory, now you're learning again. It's exponential within the span of one session. If you're like, I know what I believe, and there's no line of evidence that'll ever convince me, you just shut the door on being able to do that in life. That sucks. And you know what really sucks? You might not even know that you've shut the door or be able to appreciate how damaging that is. So people around you can witness that, but you can't.
I've been doing meditation classes down the road the last 3 weeks, and it's Buddhist meditation, and I love it. And what I love about it is, I don't know why what you said just reminded me of it. I think it's just because I'm in there learning, but not learning to wrestle and retain the information. I'm just listening to concepts, and like the sense that I get in the whole thing. I don't know if it's just the frame of mind that you walk into a space like that with, but they talk about all of this stuff, and I just have this awareness that these ideas and concepts sit in my mind, and I contemplate them at times, but I noticed before even deliberately trying to do anything with it that my relationship with some of those thoughts and ideas and topics, it was shifting the way that I interpret and also feel about life. And one of the big topics, and this wasn't even, so the first topic they talked about was, and they went really deep, really quite deep. So some people would think very surface level when they heard this talking, because I was thinking about that. But from where I went into the room and how I was feeling and thinking at the time, for me, I was like, fuck, this is real deep. Like, this is very, very sophisticated level of thinking. And it was talking about self and other, and the fact that the self and other is not, we're not separate. We're not separate from anything. This is this Buddhist mentality. And then it was talking about lives and future lives and past lives and the Buddhist philosophy around that. And interestingly, I feel like as I say that, some people are like, oh, past lives, all a bit woo-woo. But I wasn't thinking about it as in terms of, is this truth? It was more of a, if I just loosely grasp all of the things I know and this and just let it all exist in my mind, how does my relationship change with stuff? And I just felt a different sense of being in the world and also of life, both this overarching sense of doing and achievement and self-talk was changing. And weirdly, not that I go around thinking about death, but I just had this awareness that it was already shifting my relationship with the idea of life and death. And maybe that was in my mind. I had a conversation with one of my friends at the gym, and his father's in critical care at the moment and at this critical point where it's probably close to time. And he said he's okay. He said, I feel really at peace and okay. I'm okay with death as a thing. But my dad is really scared of death. And because this was in my mind, I thought of that and I was like, oh, I wish I could pass on this learning or this shift that I've personally felt for no reason, because there's no one ill or there's no reason for me to be contemplating death. But it was weird that it just sits in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's another tangent there.
It's coming for all of us. I think when you allow yourself to entertain the thought process, it's not about, is this true or is it? I don't think we know much about anything, which is okay, because we could decide what we're committed to, and that could be non-negotiable.
Yeah.
But what do we really know? And I know there are people out there that's like, no, I know this, and they know it definitively, and there's no room for conversation. And that's fine. But I believe we don't really know much, and it's not about the thing or the validity of the thing. It's the usefulness of entertaining that thought process, of allowing your mind to go there and go, okay, well, what's here for me? What can I pull out of this? Because if you look at, I remember I was a Buddhist, a Sokia Gakkai Buddhist, when I was in 8th grade. So that's the chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. I think I've talked about it on our show before. And I was growing up in Brooklyn, and that was not one of the acceptable religions. So everybody thought like something was really wrong with me. The teachers were very concerned. And I tried to explain, no, it's not a religion. It is a philosophy. And coming out of an 8th grader's mouth, that just made it even weirder. But for me, it was like, okay, what is it that I can take from this? Because when you have people thinking about something and practicing something, I mean, I'm sure sometimes people are all idiots in a certain group, but that's not likely. There is something true and something relevant and useful in different thought processes. And when you're open to that, again, it's not about an outcome. It's not about, okay, well, I'm going to convert and I have to cut off from this and move to this. When you allow that openness and fluidity of thought, I think it helps you reconcile a lot of things that you are committed to, and maybe things that you're not able to face because now you have a different vantage point. So you're looking at the same thing from a different angle. Like Robert Greene in his book, The 48 Laws of Power, he talks about Michelangelo and Mayor Soderini and the sculpture of the David, and where Soderini looked at the nose and was like, oh, it's too big for the face. And it's like, who the fuck are you? Like, seriously, like you couldn't carve a sandwich. And it's like, you're talking to the greatest sculptor, arguably of all time, and having the presence of mind and wisdom. It's like, okay, let me make the modifications, come up the scaffold and look at it from this angle. So you're not wrong. I'm not going to invalidate you. I'm not going to create a situation where you need to justify and defend and nobody gets through to anybody. Just change your vantage point. It's the same thing. Or DeWitt Jones, who was a photographer many, many years for National Geographic. And he came out into a field, filled with dandelions, and he wanted to photograph the field, but he was too late and a cold has come in and all the petals had fallen off. So he got underneath literally a dandelion and took a photo, just different vantage point, and saw something magical. It's like, oh, wow, everything's ruined. The shot's ruined. I'm too late. I'm not going to be able to get this layout. No, just change the angle from which you're looking at something. And there might be something really beautiful there for you.
Really interesting. Last week, they were talking about anger management and patience, right? And there was a lot of conversations about future lives and karma, so the idea of karma. And again, listening to it from two minds, one just listening and accepting, and then the other one wondering how others listen and hear and relate to this, and how I might have years and years ago. And it's like we talked about at the start here, the outcome versus process. And it's in the middle of this teaching, it's like, okay, what are my preconceived ideas about karma and how often, because karma is something we often hear as people talking about when shit's happened, and they want to say that they almost want to control the karma and be like, karma will get, it's like this, it's a weapon. Karma's this weapon that we use against, but fuck them, karma will get them. But so past and future lives and karma, and it was like, well, you kind of want to sit there and go, but does it exist? And then you're influencing a behavior change now for the idea. So it's like that idea of faith. And I guess that's where you can start to put religion into, like, understand religion from that point. But it's like, well, it doesn't matter, right? Because then you go, well, it doesn't actually matter if I believe in a future or past life as a thing. It actually doesn't matter if I go that does or does not exist. What matters is if I adopt the idea as a possibility, which then gives me a thing bigger than me to rely upon in order to change how I deal with the moments of difficulty and challenge, which is what this was about. It's like, how do we deal with anger as it arises in the mind? And even the way they talk about anger, they have this thing that arises in the mind. And at first I was grappling with this idea of like, hang on, when I think of anger, I think of this bodily sensation, but they're talking a concept that is not us, the concept that arises in the mind. And I just sitting and listening for long enough and contemplating how I've previously understood terms and themes and things, and just letting that go a little bit and going, hang on, what does this all mean? Like, yeah, so it's like, it's not about the outcome. It doesn't matter. Like, I'm not doing it only because there's got to be this future life, it's just, well, if I just use that concept as a crutch, my now will be better. Even if the circumstances don't change, my now will be better.
Right. And, oh God, there's so many belief systems. Well, if you don't do this, then this will happen to you. And it's like, so am I really doing it because it's something that is intrinsically valuable? Or like if somebody came up to you in the street and they put a gun to your head and it's like, tell me you love me or I'll shoot you. It's like, oh, well, I guess I kind of love you. I don't even know you, but it's like, is that a true act of love, or is that like me trying desperately to avoid an immediate and extreme consequence? I think a lot of these things, they all have truths and give you a recipe for correct living or living in a way that gives you peace. And there's all the same themes. Don't intentionally go out and hurt people. Yeah. Be kind. Atone for something when you have done something that is wrong or for selfish reasons. I mean, look at Tony Soprano, right? Go back to The Sopranos. Because a lot of times when you look at people like that, complete sociopaths, there's not this thing that happens to them. Well, I guess at the last episode, it's arguable Tony got whacked in front of his family. So not a great outcome. But a lot of times these people, they die and it's like, wow, they've gotten away with it. But did they? Like, let's say in that scene, Tony didn't get whacked, right? And it's kind of ambiguous. A lot of people are like, oh, you don't know what actually happened. I think there's a lot of signs that he did die. right? He did get murdered in that diner. But if you look at that series, this person had no peace of mind. This person was completely tormented. This person could have had a much deeper relationship with his kids, his daughter, who didn't trust him because of things that had happened way earlier in the series where he had a chance to really create bonds with her, but didn't. So now you're feeling more and more isolated. You don't have anyone around you. And even if you're someone who doesn't care about consequences and doesn't have empathy, lack of peace of mind, worrying that any moment somebody might take revenge on you for something, being isolated from people, being regarded in a way that you're despised. All of these things are a horrific state of affairs to live in. Not in some afterlife or when karma catches up to you and you're doing a prison sentence, but right now, moment to moment, your life kind of sucks. And I think that was one of the beautiful things about The Sopranos is when you looked at the character. I don't know why I'm talking about The Sopranos. Actually, I have no idea what I'm going on about. But when you look at that show, you can honestly say, well, I would never want to be that. It didn't glorify anything. It's like, what a horrible life to be in. That's not something I would ever want to be.
We have to go watch it now. I haven't watched it.
I mean, amazing show. It paved the way for so many series of its kind and for the anti-hero, if you can call Tony that even. But what a brilliant show and brilliant cast and spectacular performance.
Well, we've got to wind up, but I've had such a great time having you back on the show. Can you not disappear for so long?
What, you mean like another year? Like just completely lose my mind?
The crowd misses you. The crowd misses you. And I miss
the crowd. I miss you deeply. I've just been dealing with the aftermath of karma.
Well, you are cleansing yourself for a better future.
Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Visit us at theselfhelpantidote.com to share your feedback, insights, and recommendations on what topics you'd like us to explore in the future.